How's it going, Rogues Gallery, and welcome to another Shadowverse Evolve video here on Red Zone Rogue. Today, we have the return of one of our most popular Shadowverse Evolve series, our deck tech deep dives, and this time we have 11. We have 11 decks to get through. This is the Paragons of the Colosseum format, and it is, dude, it is so good. There are so many viable archetypes for every single craft in the entire game. I literally, like I said, we have 11 decks to go through, and we'll do some caveats here and there for some of them. Like we'll talk about the Umamusume deck and kind of where it's going to be going into the future, because there have been some announcements about that, and we'll talk about that when we get to the Umamusume deck, and maybe I'll do a whole separate video talking about where Umamusume is going to be going in the future. But yeah, sit back. Check out the timestamps down below for all of the decks. We also have deck lists as well, but I implore you to watch the video for a couple reasons. One, well, it helps the video and it helps, promote it, and YouTube's like, oh, people like this video because they're watching it. And then, it helps grow Shadowverse Evolve and all that good stuff. But two, so you actually have context for the deck lists as well. So, like I said, kick back, relax, and let's get on with our 11 deck deep dive. Let's do it. First up, let's discuss RuneCraft with, well, probably what you'd call the boogeyman of the format right now, largely considered to be one of the best decks in the game. We have Kuon or Onmyoto RuneCraft. And so we're going to kind of go over, the deck just a little bit. Once again, we have the full deck list in the description down below. You do need a good amount of tokens. You just need one of these Celestial Shikigami tokens. And actually, I have this custom token made by a great artist friend of mine, Honshu, and just kind of resembles the Shikigami, doesn't it? So this is what I'm going to be using for my own personal one. And of course, our leader of choice here is my dear Daria. The only other token that we care about is the 2/2 paper Shikigami token that on last words draw a card and you discard a card. Pretty solid. You're also going to see with all of these decks that I'm actually putting these in a oversleeve with these beautiful character sleeves underneath. So that's going to be a theme with all the decks you're going to see today. I've kind of re-sleeved all 11 of the decks. And so this one has these absolutely beautiful sleeves for the main deck, for my Evo points, and for the Evo deck. So let's get talking. This whole deck is all about Kuon, and it's basically you're playing a whole bunch of spells and Onmyoto followers to make Kuon very, very cheap or free, and then you play Kuon and you get your Shikigami, which is a 4/5 with aura, and you can give two Shikigami followers on your field storm and just kind of kill your opponent. And what you do is you do that, and then you also play Dimensional Shift and take an extra turn. So this is kind of the game plan here. We do Kuon and then D-Shift to take extra turns. And so what this deck is, it's essentially kind of like a late game control combo deck. You want to control the board, play a bunch of spells, and then kill your opponent. So mostly with Kuon, backed up with our D-Shifts. And so let's quickly go over some of the other stuff that this deck has going on. So we have Curse Crafter, which is a really powerful new card. It's a 4-drop 2/2. You can evoke for 1. On Fanfare, you summon one of those 2/2 paper Shikigami tokens. Like I said, get yourself a full play set of those, like a full 5 of those. And then you can activate his ability and bury a Shikigami follower, and you select an enemy from on the field and deal it 4 damage. For the rest of this turn, this card's effect cannot be activated. So you can only do that once per turn. But he has a really powerful Evo effect. And when you Evo him, he becomes a 3/3, and then on Evo, you select an enemy from on the field and deal it 2 damage, and if there's at least 7 cards and Onmyoji cards in your cemetery, you deal it 4 damage. So you can basically deal 8 damage plus the attack, so that's a lot of damage with this single card. So we run a full set of him. Actually, an insanely powerful card. So we have the Curse Crafter, we have another one of our Onmyoto cards, so this one is Traditional Sorcerer, 2-drop 1/4, very, very hardy. And then whenever a Shikigami follower is put into your field, give it Ward, which is great. And then you can pay 2, and if there are at least 7 spells and Onmyoji cards in your cemetery, you summon a paper Shikigami. And then you give your leader +2 health, which is great. So this card's really good. Heals us a little bit, summons a paper Shikigami token, give him Ward. This is another one to summon our Paper Shikigami. This is a 2-drop spell. Summon a Paper Shikigami token. If there's at least 7 spells and Onmyoji cards in your cemetery, draw a card. Really, really powerful, running 3 of these. And you see a theme here. Almost every card in this deck is either an Onmyoji card, like the traditional Sorcerer, or the Curse Crafter. I guess the Shikigami summons is both. Or some really power card, like, well, I guess D-Shift is a spell, and Kuon is also an Onmyoji card. So the ones that aren't are stuff like Merlin and Agnes and Penguin Wizard, and then everything else is a spell. So obviously we have Merlin to be able to go search our deck for cards that we really need in whatever certain circumstance. So we are running what I would call a toolbox package of a bunch of one-off spells. So we can go search for them with Merlin and then play them for free with the Merlin Evo. So we have 3 Merlin main deck, and then we have 3 Merlin Evo deck. And then we have Agnes Tachyon. I know some decks don't run Agnes, but I really like her still because of the ability to shrink our opponent's followers whenever we play spells. And then also to be able to Evo her. I'm running 2 of the Evo deck to get our spells back to replay them. So yeah, I still really like Agnes Tachyon, but I've seen some decks not run her at all. She's a really expensive card, so if you want a slightly more budget version of this deck, you can not run Agnes. I'm running 2 Penguin Wizards because Penguin Wizard just helps us draw through our deck, and discarding spells and Onmyoji followers are actually pretty good. So we have 2 Penguin Wizards to get that draw and discard, and then we have 2 in the Evo deck, and that's our full Evo deck. We have Merlin's, Agnes, Penguin Wizard, and Curse Crafter. Yeah, it's a pretty robust Evo deck for Rune, and then the rest of the deck is just all spells, mostly removal and draw. So we have Lamplit, which is a nice 1-drop removal. We have Surefire Bullet, a nice 2-drop removal, 4 damage to Evo followers. We have Truth's Adjudication, I can say it correctly, Rime Wind, Witch Bolt, Crimson Meteor Storm. These are our one-off package where we can go basically search for them with Merlin, and for some of them, play them for free for her Evo. Something like Crimson Meteor Storm, well, we'd have to get it back with something like Tachyon. So Truth's Adjudication, it says, if you have at least 2 Mage Fall on the field, we can choose 2 of these, otherwise we just choose 1. We can either draw 2 cards, deal 3 damage to each enemy leader, or select an enemy fall on the field and deal it 3 damage. So just a nice little catch-all. Draw some cards, deal some damage, whatever you need. Or just dome our opponent for 3. Rime Wind's a great removal that can just get rid of any unevolved follower, which is really, really good. We definitely want to build up that spell chain so we can just put on top of their deck, which is also pretty solid. Witch Bolt is another great removal, just 5 damage, and if we have an Evo follower, we can draw a card. Really works well with Merlin and Tachyon. And then a new card, Crimson Meteor Storm, 7-drop, Spell Chain 10, costs 5. So if you have Spell Chain 10, it's much more efficient, but it's just a deal 6 damage to each enemy fall on the field, deal 3 damage to each enemy leader. This card is great, and one of the reasons why I actually like running Agnes Tachyon, because her Evo effect is we just get to pick any spell and bring it back. We're just gonna select a spell card in our cemetery and add it to our hand. Whereas the Merlin, you get to play one for free, but it has to be a 3 cost or less. So I do like getting this back against the really, really big board opponents, which can't happen in this meta. For the rest of the deck, we have 3 Insight, 1-drop, lets us draw a card. Great, fills up our board, or fills up our bin, so we can power out our Kuon and our D-Shift. We have Sorcery Cache. This is another one-of, so we have a couple other one-ofs. So we had the one-of like removal, now we have the one-ofs for like the card advantage. Sorcery Cache, 2-drop, quick. Look at the top 4 cards of your deck. You can reveal a spell from among them, add it to your hand. You may also put a spell into your cemetery, then put the remaining cards on the bottom of your deck. So fills our spell chain, gets a card. We have Noble Instruction. Look at the top 5 cards of the deck, reveal a follower from among them and add it to your hand. Put the remaining cards on the bottom of your deck in any order. On Spell Chain 10, we get to recover a play point. Pretty good. And then Fate's Hand, pretty simple. 3-drop, draw 2 cards, Spell Chain 10, recover a play point. So these are just different ways to draw cards, essentially. So like we have a nice little removal package, card draw package. We can go tutor for whatever we need. And then finally, very simple card. It's just Trail of Light. We're running Penguin Wizard. This card is cracked with Penguin Wizard. It's just 2-drop, draw a card, but when it's discarded, you also draw a card. And yeah, that's it. This is the deck. You do all that stuff, kill all your opponent's things, kind of go through the motions, drop a Kuon, take an extra turn, just kill him. Just kill him. And it is very, very powerful. So yeah, that is the Kuon deck. Let's get on to more Paragons of the Colosseum decks. Next up, we have what might be my personal favorite deck of this season. This is Control Abyss. I know there's a lot of Abyss fans out there, and I've, as you'll see in this video, upgraded all of my decks to have these nice shiny leaders here. So this deck does use some tokens. You can see my old Luna. Sorry, Luna. No, we are running Cerberus today. Definitely need your 5 one-tailed fox tokens. We'll talk about that once we get to Ginsetsu. And as always, we're gonna kind of show off the beautiful sleeves we have going on here, because I actually genuinely like, I don't know, theming my deck around my sleeves. All right, so let's set the Evo deck aside and let's talk about this deck. So this deck is a control deck, right? This is a control deck, tried and true. It's all about controlling our opponent's hand, controlling the board, and then controlling the game. That's the way I like to think about it. And we're running some pretty powerful stuff here. This is kind of like the next evolution of your Silence Abyss. So we're going to be running Rulanai and a lot of other stuff that we were running in the previous meta, like our Dark Angel Olivia, but it's going to be backed up by Ginsetsu Great Fox. So Ginsetsu, one of my favorite cards from Paragons of the Colosseum, might just be my favorite card. She's a 6-drop 1/5. She evos for 1, and on Fanfare you put 5 one-tailed fox tokens in your EX area. So one-tailed fox tokens are 2-drops, 1/3s with Rush and Ward. However, when we Evo Ginsetsu, she becomes a 1/9, very, very hard to deal with without hard removal. And then while this card is on your field, any yokai follower you play costs 2 less. Hey look, the one-tailed fox is a yokai follower. So these are all free to play from your EX area. And then also, if a yokai fall on your field would deal damage, it deals that much +1. So now they all deal 2 damage. And she also says, whenever a yokai follower you control leaves the field, give this follower +1 attack. So whenever one of these dies, Ginsetsu gets +1 attack. Actually, whenever one of them leaves the field for any reason, she gets +1 attack. So we're running 2 Evo Ginsetsu in the Evo deck just because, well, she's very strong, but we don't need all 3 in the Evo deck. So you're running 3 Ginsetsu main deck, 2 Evo deck. She's just a really, really powerful finisher. And she actually works insanely well with Ektar, who's a 7-drop 5/6. He has Fanfare, Necrocharge 10. So like 2 Abyss followers that cost 2 play points or less in your cemetery. And spoilers, we only have 2. It's going to be either the Servant of Silence or Demonium. You pick 2 of them, and then you just put them onto the field. And then you give every follow on your field +1/+1. And then if you have Necrocharge 20, you give them +3/+3 instead. And then also others on your field, each Abyss follower on your field has Rush. Why it's so good with Ginsetsu is if you play Ginsetsu, you run out a bunch of foxes, right? So say you play Ginsetsu, you run out some foxes, you trade some foxes in, pumps up our Ginsetsu, and then on the following turn, if they don't deal with our foxes, we can jam out Ektar, who will pump up all of our dudes, and it'll be an absolute nightmare for our opponent, especially if we get that +3/+3 on all of the foxes, making them into 4 6s that deal an additional point of damage with Ginsetsu, each dealing 5 points of damage. It's really good. It's really good. So if you can get to this late game, if you can control it to the point where you can Ginsetsu Evo and then Demon Lord Ektar +3 your board, it's real good. It's real good. Great finisher. All right, so let's talk about some of the ways we're going to control the board. So we have Yuzuki, Righteous Demon, a 6-drop 5/5 with Bane. Good stats. Fanfare. Each opponent buries a follower. So this actually gets around a lot of annoying, like, can't be damaged, can't be selected type of effects because they just have to bury a follower. And if you have Necrocharge 10, they bury 2. Really, really solid. And then for 3, you can discard this from your hand, and then you select any enemy follower on the field and deal it 5 damage, and you put the top card of your deck into your cemetery, so you bury 1 card. So this is actually like a two cards of value when talking about like Necrocharge, which is good. And it's just a 3-drop removal that turns into a powerful removal threat late game. We also have Olivia. She's incredible, forcing our opponent to discard a card from their hand. We can also heal, we can also draw a card, we can get more Evo points. Olivia is one of my favorite cards of all time. It's one of the reasons I love this deck so much, and just having Olivia here is really, really awesome. We have the Apostle of Silence. We're running 3 in the main deck, 4-drop, 4/4 Evo for 1. This is the one that cares about if your opponent has very few cards in their hand. So at the start of the end phase, select an enemy leader. If there are 3 cards or less in their hand, you deal them 3 damage, which is great. And then we are running the Evo versions of this. So Evo version of the Apostle of Silence is a 5/5, and then on Evolve, you select an enemy follower on the field and deal it 3 damage. And then if there are 3 cards or less in your opponent's hand, you destroy it. Pretty good. Or you destroy it instead, I suppose. And then it still has the effect where it deals them 3 damage at the end of the turn. So yeah, just a nice little 2-for-1 Evo card. We also have Soul Dealer, which is still really good. It's just a big chungus that just kills stuff and also heals us and deals a little bit of damage too. So it's 4-drop, 6/5, great stats. Ward, Fanfare, you take 3 damage, but you don't care because when you Evo it for 2, it just kills something and heals you. It just is real good. So it becomes a 7/6, still with Ward, and you select an enemy follower on the field, destroy it, and heal your leader for X, where X is the follower's attack. Running 2 of those. Yeah, so just a great little card. Once you start controlling the board, this is just a great way to just blow up one of your opponent's things, and also you have a big threat. Rune is a great way to make them discard cards, 3-drop, 3/3, Evo for 1. You also have this Necro Charge 10, where you select an enemy follower, and that costs 3 play points or less, and destroy it. And then while this is on your field, any spell an opponent plays costs 1 more, which is great for taxing them. But also, when you Evo Rune, it says each opponent discards a random card, which is great. It becomes a 4/4 and still has that spell taxing effect to tax them for that 1. We're also running the Servant of Silence. This is a 2-drop, 2/3. Whenever an opponent discards a card, deal 2 damage to their leader and put the top 2 cards of your deck into your cemetery. So great for fueling all of our Necro Charge stuff and just dealing a bunch of damage to them when they discard cards. So this is a great little card. And also we need some 2-drops to get back with our Ektar here. So we have 3 of them. Demonium is just an absolute staple for Abysscraft. 2-drop, 2/3. Can have Bane if you want it. Has Ward. When it dies, it heals you. Really solid. And then, of course, control staple, Bellringer Angel. Just a nice little 0/2. Gums up the board. Draws you a card when it dies. We are running the Evo version for that nice little tempo swing of 2 points of damage if we ever need it. And it's also a great target for our soul conversions, which we're running, which is a simple card, quick spell. Select a follower on your field to destroy it and draw 2 cards. Really simple. So with the Bellringer Angel, you draw 3 cards. Really good. Silent Purge is a nice removal. 4-drop. Select an enemy follower on the field, destroy it, and its controller discards a random card. It's 4, but like blowing up anything and forcing them to discard is great. It's not quick speed though, so you have to play it on your turn. Same with Thundering Roar. Got to play it on your turn, but it's still really, really efficient. 2-drop. Select one of the following. If you have Necro Charge 10, you do both. Your opponent discards a card at random, and then you can select an enemy follower on the field and deal it 3 damage. So you got to pick one of those. Unless you have Necro Charge 10, you do both. And then finally, Surefire Bullet. You're seeing a lot in this. You're gonna see a lot in this video. 2 damage to anything that you want, or any follower that you want, or 4 damage if it is evolved. Just really solid, efficient removal. So yeah, control the board, control the hand, control the game. That's the name of the game with this deck. Like I said, I actually really, really love this deck. One of my favorites. Next up we have Aggro Abyss, or Sanguine Abyss. This one is the all-in aggro deck for Abyss, and it has some really, really nice new cards from Paragons of the Colosseum. Got a bunch of bat tokens, we got our ghost tokens, we got our Mimi and Coco tokens, because you know we're running the Cerberus in this deck. Leader of choice is Urias, and then we have the, I don't know, I flipped that down. It's because I was going to flip these over. And then, of course, we have our sleeves for this version. Just waiting for my Vampy deck, which will be in a few sets time. But, yep, those are the sleeves we got rocking this deck. All right, so this deck is a pretty simple all-in aggro style strategy. This deck is very simple. You play a bunch of dudes and you attack them in the face for as much damage as you can. Every single card in this deck is a follower, with the exception of Razory Claw, which is just a 2-cost quick spell that deals 3 damage to yourself and 3 damage to our opponent. Dealing damage to ourselves is relevant for some of the cards. After all, we do want to activate Sanguine. And, well, let's talk about Aragavi the Berserker. This is one of the big new cards of this deck. This dude is a house. He's a 3-drop, 4/3. He fanfares. You can pay an additional 5, and if you do, he deals 5 damage to each other follower on the field, and then he gets +2/+2 and Storm. So for 8, you deal 5 damage to each other follower on the field, and then you have a 6/5 Storm. Pretty good. And then at the start of your end phase, if Sanguine is active for you, which it will likely be in this deck, you select an enemy leader or follower on the field and deal it 3 damage. So you can also deal an additional 3 points of damage. Aragavi is an absolute house, and he's so strong. Really powerful in the early game, because you still have that bottom effect, right? You still have that at the start of your end phase. If Sanguine is active for you, you can dome something for 3. You still have that even if you don't pay the extra 5. But if you pay the extra 5, he can just also kill everything, and also your opponent. For the 1-drops, we have a bunch of 1-drops. You probably know by now what we're running here for the Sanguine version, the aggro version of Abyss. We have our Ambling Wraith, 1-drop, 2/1, fanfare, deal 1 damage to each leader. Helps us enable that Sanguine. Also super aggressive. We have the Disciple of Lust, very similar, just a little bit different. 1-drop, 1/1, fanfare, deal 1 damage to each leader, but also you get to deal an additional point of damage to each leader on strike, which is really good. So you can enable the Sanguine on turns that you didn't play this. Cards that you want to enable Sanguine on: Skeleton Fighter, simple 1-drop, 2/2. If Sanguine's active for you when you play this, he gets +1/+1. So a great strategy that a lot of folks will do is they'll sandbag one of these for turn 2, and they'll well, it's maybe a little bit better to do the Wraith, hold on to the Wraith. I know some people will kind of gamble and play Disciple of Lust on turn 1, ping each player for 1, and then if it survives, then you can attack and then play a Skeleton Fighter that'll be a 3/3, which is great. Otherwise, you can wait till turn 2 and then drop your Disciple of Lust and Skeleton Fighter to guarantee that you can enable that Sanguine, so you have a 1/1 and a 3/3, or you can do the same thing with the Ambling Wraith. There's a lot of powerful 1-drops in this deck. Speaking of which, we have Fina Dynamite Daredevil. This is just a staple card at this point, especially if you're running a bunch of 1-drops, and we are. So we get to look at the top 5 cards of our deck, and then grab a 1-drop, and we have a lot, or we can blow up an enemy's 1-drop, which is good. So Fina, must have for this deck. We have this new card, the Antelope Pelt Warrior, 2-drop, 3/3, good stats, and also at the start of your main phase, deal 1 damage to your leader, so he helps enable our Sanguine. Great, everything that we want. We have Demonic Hedonist, a nice efficient little card, 2-drop, 2/2 with an Evo for 1. At the start of your end phase, if Sanguine is active for you, draw a card and discard a card, so it helps us kind of like filter our hand a little bit so we can get the more powerful cards, or if we have a bunch of high drops, we can get, fish for some of our 1 and 2 drops here. The Evo version, of which we are running 2, is a 3/3 that strike deals 1 damage to each leader, and then it has the same effect. So basically just helps turn on Sanguine, which is really good. We are running 3 in the main deck. We're bringing back Vite, Vampire Noble, which is a simple card, but pretty good. 2-drop, 2/2. On strike, you summon a Forest Bat token, Evos for 1. And then when he's evolved, he becomes a 3/3. And on evolve, you put a Forest Bat token into your EX area. And then on strike, you summon a Forest Bat token, which is just good. So he just helps flood the board with little 1/1 bats. Once again, you need to get your Forest Bat tokens with that. So we're running 3 main deck and then 2 in the Evo. 2 in the Evo, right? I've changed this deck quite a bit. Yeah, 2 in the Evo. And now we have Valnaric. So I know a lot of people aren't running Valnaric anymore, but I still really like her in this deck. She's a 2-drop, 2/2, and then while Sanguine is active for you, this follower has Storm, and we have a lot of ways you saw to turn on Sanguine. And then on strike, you deal X damage to each enemy leader. X equals the number of times your leader has lost defense this turn. And then if your leader's defense is exactly 7, she gets +2/+2. But she's just a really efficient 2-drop that, frequently has Storm and frequently deals extra points of damage. I think she's just really good. Running 2 in this version. Next up, we have some of our higher drops. Play for Necro, a starter deck card, really good. 3-drop, 3/3, and then you Evo her, and she becomes a 4/4 and spits out a bunch of ghosts. So she becomes a 4/4, which you see we are running 2 of. And then on Evo, you summon 3 ghosts, and the ghosts are great because the ghosts have Storm. They are 1/1s with Storm that die at the end turn, or at the end of your phase, or at the start of your end phase, you banish it. At the end of your turn, they die. This is what I'm trying to get at. So great. She just floods the board with a bunch of dudes, and you just hit your opponent for a whole bunch. Speaking of which, Dark General. 4-drop, 5/5. Fanfare if Sanguine is active for you, gain Storm. Great way to just kill our opponent. 5/5 for 4. Overstatted and also has Storm. Really strong. We have Cerberus. Also another staple. 4-drop, 3/3. You Fanfare, summon a Mimi or Coco token, or you put one in your EX area, and then Necrocharge 10, you put both instead. So if you Fanfare Necrocharge 10, you get a Mimi and a Coco token, and then she evos for 2, and she becomes a 5/5, getting that rare more than +1/+1. And then on Evo, you put a Mimi and Coco token in your EX area. So you can get a bunch of Mimi and Coco tokens. What do those do if you're new? Well, Coco is just a 0-drop spell that gives one of your followers +2 attack. And then Mimi is a 0-drop spell that deals 2 damage to one of your enemy followers. So it's great. Deal a bunch of damage, pump up your dudes, I don't know, attack them with your big storm Dark General, or you can even pump up your Valnarek. Good stuff. Yeah. Cerberus continues to be great. So I run 4 of her main deck, and then I run only just a couple of her in the Evo deck. And speaking of which, we have the last card in this list, Jerry. I underestimated Jerry last season. He's really good. Jerry, also known as Mierabane Omen of 1, is a 5-drop 5/5. This is the top end of our deck. He can Evo for 1. He has Rush, and it says at the start of your end phase, if there are 2 cards or less in your hand, you deal 3 damage to each enemy leader. Then if there are 0 cards in your hand, you deal 3 damage to each enemy follower on the field. So he just domes our opponent, and he's just big. And he domes them for more when he evos. So when he evos, he becomes a 6/6 at the start of end phase. Refresh this card, and if there are 2 or less cards in your hand, deal 5 damage to each enemy leader. And if there are 0 cards in your hand, deal 5 damage to each enemy follower. And we burn through our hand very quickly with this deck. So yeah, Jerry can just end games and just kill our opponent out of nowhere, because he's just dealing like 5 damage. So yeah, this is the Sanguine Abyss. Like I said, this one is another great option if you want to play Abyss. Super, super aggressive. Probably the most aggressive deck in the game right now. Yeah, it's great. Next up, we have another one of my pet decks with Thief Sword. So this is another deck that's basically like an updated version of the deck that you might have run in the previous Omens Eternal format. As always, we need our Knight tokens and our Steel-clad Knight tokens. Knights just being 1/1, Steel-clads being 2/2s. Just gotta go get the foil Knight tokens. This deck, I'm running Albert as my leader of choice. And then of course, for the sleeves, we got some nice SWORDCRAFT themed and or inspired sleeves. Yeah, great stuff. All right, so this is Thief Sword. This is kind of more of a mid-rangey type deck that can pivot into an aggro strategy depending on what your opponent is doing. We are running a good number of the new legendary cards from Paragons of the Colosseum, like Ralmia, who's a 3/2 for 2 that has Rush, and you can Evo her for 3, but her Evo cost is reduced for every follower on your field. And you want a bunch of followers on your field because when you actually do evolve her, she becomes a 4/3. Now she has Storm, and on evolve you can pay 3 and give this follower +1/+1 for every other follower on your field. So essentially you want to have at least 3 followers on your field, because what that does is it lets you Evo her for free, and then you pay that 3 into it, so costing 5 total, and now she has 4 attack plus an additional 3 because of the +1/+1 for every other follower. So that's a 7 Storm. You know what's a good 7 Storm that makes everyone terrified? Forte. This card, if you can set it up, is your Sword Forte. She's great. So we're running 2 of her in the Evo deck, very similar to how we would run 2 Fortes. And then in the main deck, we have 3. She's also really, really good early game too. She's a 3/2 Rush for 2, which is really, really, really good. Next up, we have Kagebitsu, Matchless Blade. Really, really interesting card. So it's a 1-drop, 1/1 with Rush. Fanfare, give this follower +X/+X, where X equals a number of face-up evolved followers in your Evo deck. If X is at least 3, he gains Assail. If it's at least 7, he gets Strike, refresh this follower, perform this once per turn, which is insane. He can do so much freaking damage. And what that means is essentially you want to use and Evo as many followers as you can, right? And you want to get to that 7 Evo follower. You want to, you know, when you Evo your follower, it gets turned face up when it comes back into your Evo deck. And so essentially, you want to do that as much as you can, and you play him. He still costs 1, and he still has a rush. So he's like 8 damage rush that just pounds twice. Like, he's an absolute unit. Kagemitsu is really good. Another one of the new cards that I think is really, really solid, that's both good early and late, is the Steadfast Samurai. It's just a 1-drop, 1/1, and then he just doesn't take combat damage, like, at all. It just says this follower doesn't take combat damage, period. And then you can pay 2 anytime during your turn, not at quick speed, but you can just pay 2, and you give him +1/+1 and rush. So what you can do is you can play him on turn 1, and then pump him up on the next turn, or you can play him late game, and then just pump all of your play points into him, make him huge, and then deal a bunch of damage. Yeah, sweet. So I'm running a full set of them. As you can see, we're running a lot of 1-drops. You can probably guess what's coming. We have the Servant of Usurpation, so we still have the Thief package. It's just a 1-drop, 1/2, fanfare. Each opponent puts the top card of their deck in their cemetery, and then during your turn, whenever card is put from an opponent's deck into the cemetery, he gets +1. So he's at least a 1-drop 2/2, maybe even bigger. Really good. We're also running your girl, a Bellringer Angel. Just a nice little suite of Bellringer Angels. This is, I don't think, we are running one of the Bellringer Angels. Once again, for that kind of like tempo, you can play your Bellringer Angel, and if you have nothing else to do, you can Evo it to deal a little bit of damage, which is great. And like I said, this deck is not really an aggro deck. It can pivot into an aggro deck because we have so many 1-drops and other aggressive cards, but we can also, you know, play the mid-game kind of thing. And then we have Fina. Like we said, Fina cares about 1-drops. Look at all the 1-drops we have. It's Fina rarely misses in this deck, so Fina's really, really strong. I'm actually buying some of the promo Finas to put in this deck because she's just so good in this list. We also have our full set of Octress. Octress is actually just incredible. 2-drop, 2/2, Evos for 2, or you can Evo for 0 if our opponent has at least 10 cards in their cemetery. And then on Fanfare, each opponent puts the top 2 cards of their deck into the cemetery. And then for 8 play points, you can select a card in their cemetery and then play it for free, which is great. And then the Evo version lets us steal stuff, which is also great. Evo version, she becomes a 4/4, so she goes from a 2/2 into the 4/4. And then on Evo, you select a card in our opponent's cemetery, and then it goes into our EX area, which is awesome. She still has the ability for 8 play points to play anything in their cemetery for free. But also, if they have at least 10 cards in their cemetery, any card we play from the EX area costs 2 less. So we get to put something in our EX area, and then it costs 2 less. That's really good. So we have 2 of those in our Evo deck, and like I said, 3 in the main. We're running Floor Fencer. This is just a SWORDCRAFT staple. It's just a 3-drop, 3/3 Evos for 1, and then when you Evo it, it spits out a bunch of dudes. When you Evo it, it spits out a 1/1 and a 2/2, and it also becomes a 4/4. Evo, summon Steelclad Knight and a Knight. Really, really solid. Works really, really well with Ralmia. So, because Ralmia really cares about having 3 other followers on the field, hey, guess what? Floor Fencer gives you 3 followers. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. Just have to keep in mind that you can't Evo both of them on the same turn. So you want to do a Floor Fencer, Evo, and then your next turn, you jam your Ralmia for your total of 5 play points. And it works perfectly because this is 4 to Evo, like playing Evo, and the next turn you can do 5, punch your opponent in the face for 7. Good stuff. Plus all the other stuff. Yeah, if they don't deal with your board, you just could probably just kill them. Next up, we have Gemstaff Commander, one of my favorite cards in Shadowverse. Super, super solid. 3-drop, 3/2. Search your deck for any sword follower. Reveal it, add it to your hand. So just go get whatever you need to win the game, right? Do you need Ralmia? Can you punch your opponent for 7? Go get Ralmia. Is Kagemitsu going to be busted? Go get Kagemitsu. Is Octress going to be busted? Go get Octress. Is the next card going to be busted? Maybe, because it's crazy. Disciple of Usurpation. 3-drop, 3/2 with Storm. And then on strike, each opponent puts the top card of their deck into the cemetery. Then, if they have at least 10, it gets a permanent +2. So it attacks for 5. 3-drop, 5 attack. Crazy. This card is actually completely nuts. Next up, we have the Apostle of Usurpation. We're only running we're running 3 in the main deck, and we're only running 2 in the Evo deck. And this dude's really good. He's a 4-drop, 3/4. And he Evos for 1, and Fanfare, each opponent puts the top 2 cards of their deck in the cemetery, and then if there's at least 10, you get a draw card. That's okay. But why he's really good is because he gives you really nice 2-for-1 situations. When he evos, you select an enemy on the field and deal it 4 damage, and then he's a 4/5. So basically, you play this dude, you draw a card, and then you kill something, and you attack into something else. It's just really, really solid. Yeah. And for the whole 5 play points, you get to do all of that. Next up, we are running Aurelia Regal Saber. She is back, and she's really good into this meta. 5-drop, 4/6, Rush, Sell, Ward. And on Fanfare, if our opponent has at least 3 cards on their field, she gets +2/+2 and Aura, making her a 6/8 Rush, Sell, Ward, Aura for 5. She is nuts, and there's a lot of decks that just swarm the board in this format, this one included, and even the Rune deck, runs a lot of stuff with all the Shikigami stuff. So Aurelia is just so good, and if you can give her that aura too, dude, she's so good. So we're running 2 Aurelias. And then one of the new big boys here, we have the Hero of Antiquity. Another just really pain in the butt card to deal with. He's a 7-drop, but he's a 6/10 that evos for 1. He has Rush and Aura, and he also says he can't be destroyed or banished by abilities. Woof. You have to like attack into him. He can't be destroyed by ability damage, but he's just so hard to deal with. And then when you evo him, we're only running 1 in the evo deck. He becomes a 7/11 with Aura, and he can't be destroyed by abilities. And on evolve, you select an enemy from the field and destroy it. If it costs 6 or more, you banish it. The Hero of Antiquity is kind of nuts. If you can get up to this point where you can play him and evo him, he's nuts. And you'll notice we don't run Leonidas anymore. Instead, I'm basically running the Hero because he's just so big and really, really, really hard to deal with. And then finally, we just have the Usurping Spine Blade. I always call this the Spell Blade. 2-drop, deal 3 damage. They mill the top card, and then if there's 10 cards, it deals an additional 2 damage. If they have 10 cards in their cemetery, it'll do 5. Yeah, really good. So just kind of like Abyss, honestly, kind of like Sanguine Abyss. A bunch of dudes, a bunch of 1-drops, and then we have a couple spells at the end. But this one can pivot very nicely into the mid game with Aurelia, Apostle, as well as our Hero of Antiquity. I really like this deck a lot. Yeah, sword good. All right, now let's quickly talk about UmaCraft, or the Umamusume deck. Now, I'm not going to go super, super deep into this because literally this deck hasn't changed at all, other than the fact that I put some very, very nice sleeves on it. Look at these beautiful sleeves, these beautiful Shadowverse sleeves that I picked up at Anime Expo this year. And then we have some Uma sleeves for the Evo deck. So basically, this deck is literally the exact same. My version still doesn't run Agnes Tachyon because I'm still running it in my RuneCraft deck. So instead, I'm running Silent Suzuka, which I think is still really, really strong. And then we still have, your Daiwa Scarlet and Vodka package. We have Special Week, just a bunch of ways to get a lot of card advantage with like Ikuno Dictus. This is a really solid like aggro, mid-rangey, very, very follower-focused deck. You can kill your opponent with like Silent Suzuka. We also have just some really powerful cards. This deck is one of the cheapest decks to build in the entire game right now. And also, it's probably not one of the best at this point because it's a little bit outdated. However, I do want to mention that this is likely your kind of like last chance to really use it and have it be effective until the new Uma set comes out. That's right. They have officially announced, at least the Japanese version of Shadowverse Evolve, has announced that there is going to be a second Umamusume collab set. So while this might fall out of favor now, it will eventually get even more brand new cards and support. So hold on to your Umamusume cards. Maybe pick some up if they're really cheap, which I think a lot of these are. And, they're coming back. They'll come back eventually. Not anytime soon for us English players, but it'll eventually come back. And, they have a very good track record of making like the collab sets, like the one coming, like the Idolmaster collab sets, very, very powerful. So I would be willing to bet that the Uma 2, I'm just going to be calling it Uma 2, is going to be very, very powerful. I'll probably do a whole video talking about the newly announced Umamusume set, but yeah, this is probably your last hurrah for the English version until the new Uma 2 comes out. So yeah, I guess you can always just play your Uma set too if you like UmaCraft. It's still like, it's not bad, right? But you know, it's starting to get a little bit outclassed. I just want to be honest with you. So, yeah. All right, let's talk about SWORDCRAFT now. And I'm actually really excited to play both of the SWORDCRAFT decks that we're gonna showcase in today's video, because Forest actually gets some pretty sweet archetypes. Of course, you always need all your fairies, but for this deck in particular, you definitely need a lot of fairies and wisps. This is the new Fairy Forest deck, and as you can see, I have appropriately sleeved up with these fairy sleeves and our nice Crystalia there. Our leader of choice is Michelle, but we have another fancy forest leader that we're going to show off for the next deck that I'm a little bit more excited for. This one I think is the more competitive deck, and I think a lot of people will be playing this if you're a big fan of Forest, but the other one, I'm really excited. I'm really excited for it, which is the Hunter Forest. So this deck is what I would call an aggro combo deck. It's essentially going to feature around these couple cards, especially Amataz, Fairy Dragon, and well, just anything that puts fairies or pumps up fairies. This deck is all about putting a bunch of fairy wisps or fairies. That's a Japanese fairy. Put an English. Do I have an English fairy? I have a foil one. There we go. English fairy. We have put these into our EX area, pump them up, play them, give them storm, and then smash into our opponent. So Amataz is a 2-drop 2/2 fanfare. Put a fairy token into our EX area. You know, let's pull out one of each of these, just so they, you know, are in frame here, because they really matter. All right, this deck's all about the fairies. So 2-drop 2/2 fanfare, put a fairy token into your EX area, then you give each pixie follower in your EX area +1/+1. And so I want to note that the fairy wisp is a pixie, and then the fairy is also a pixie. So you give all of them in your EX area +1/+1, and then you can activate them to select up to 2 pixie followers that cost 1 or less on your field, and then you give them storm. So what you do is you put a bunch of these into your EX area, and then you pump them up, and then you play them, and then you just kill your opponent. You can also just start playing him over the course of the game, chipping your opponent down. We have Blessed Fairy Dancer, like a set 1 card that is really good now. 2-drop 2/3 fanfare, +1/+1 to each other pixie follower on your field and in your EX area. So once again, you put the pixies in the EX area, you pump them up. This is a really, really powerful card. And you also have Fairy Dragon, so just pumps out a bunch of fairies, or it gets pumped up for your fairies as well. So it's a 2-drop 0/4 with Ward Fanfare. He gets +1 attack for every pixie token on your field and in your EX area. And then when it dies, you put a fairy wisp and a fairy token into your EX area. So it gets bigger for the more you have, and then it pumps out even more. It's only a 2-drop too, and it's a 0/4. This card is like really, really solid. We have our Crystalia Lily, which is just a nice little card. You can evo her for 2, and on Fanfare, you look at the top 2 cards of your deck, and you reveal a Crystallian or Pixie follower, of which we have a lot in this deck. Well, not a ton, but we have some. Because, like, notably, Amataz is a elf Fey-touched, not a pixie, but our Blessed Fairy Dancer is a pixie, as well as our Fairy Dragon. So we have some, but not everything. And you can get another Lily, which is great. And then you get to pick one, you put it in your hand, the rest of them on the bottom of your deck. And then when you evo her, she's super, super powerful. She becomes a 2/4, and then on evo, select an enemy file on the field and put it on the bottom of their deck. And so we're running 2 of her in the evo and 3 in the main. She's just really, really good for dealing with our opponent's stuff. We have Sakuna Brave and Small, 1-drop 1/1 evos for 1. This is the card that just gets storm on evo. It's just a nice way to kill our opponent, and it's really cheap. And then we can do that after we play like a bunch of our like pixies and stuff. So it becomes a 2/2 with storm, and then on evo, combo 3 gets +1/+1, combo 5 get +3/+3. So it can be like a 5-attack storm, which is really good. Just running 1 in the evo deck. We have Rose Gardener, another starter deck card, 3-drop 3/3 evos for 1, and this is just another way to deal with our opponent's annoying stuff. And we're running 2 in the evo deck, becomes a 4/4. On evolve, select enemy file on the field and return it to their hand. Or if you have combo 3, you also get a draw card, which is really good. So we have these ways that we get these nice little 2-for-1s with Lily and Rose Gardener. And then we have Rhinoceroach. Roach is back. So Roach is really great in this deck. It's a 2-drop 1/1, evos for 0, also has Rush, and on Fanfare it gets plus X attack, where X equals the number of cards you've played this turn, excluding this card. So it baseline has a Rush and helps you deal with our opponent's stuff, but when you Evo it, it can also just kill our opponent. So when you Evo it, it's still a 1/1, and it says, choose one of the following effects. You can give it Storm, or you can select an enemy follower on the field and deal it X damage, where X equals this follower's attack. So you want to play a bunch of stuff, and then play your Roach, and then either Storm him in the face, or get a nice little 2-for-1 where you can shoot something for X damage and then attack something else, you know? Really good. And we're running 2 in the Evo deck, and then 3 in the main deck, as you saw. We have these Archers. Archers just ping opponent stuff when we play dudes. We're going to be playing a lot of dudes, so that makes a lot of sense. Running 2 of the Archers. It's a 2-drop 1/4. And then we're running a single Archer in the Evo deck. It's still a 1/4, but whenever another follower is put on our field, we get to select 2 enemy followers and deal them 1 damage, which is great. So just a nice way to kind of like ping out some dudes, and we're running a lot of fairies and stuff. Just easy way to do that. The Elven Princess Mage is a 3 of in our deck. Once again, very simple card, 3-drop 3/3 evos for 1, and then we evo it, we get some Fairy Wisps, and we want to put the Fairy Wisps in to kind of set up for our big turns. So we're running 2 in the Evo deck. It just becomes a 4/4, and like I said, on Evo, put 2 Fairy Wisps into our EX area. And then, you know, we want to put the Fairy Wisps in our EX area, and then save them for when we can pump them up to make them real big with our Fairy Dancers, our Amatas, and then we can kind of like do a nice little combo Storm turn with either Sukuna or Rhinoceroach or whatever. So definitely something you want to save for the opportune time. We have Spinaria, Keeper of Enigmas. This card is great for this deck. It's a 5-drop 3/5 with Ward. Fanfare, look at the top 4 cards of your deck. Then you get to take a Forest Follower and a Forest Spell, and then put them in your hand, and the rest go on the bottom of your deck. And then on combo 3, you get to recover 3 play points. She's really, really good, and being able to get a spell and a follower is really, really powerful. Because we have some really good spells, like all of these. So Fairy Circle, 1-drop, put 3 fairy tokens into your EX area. Really good, especially with all those effects that pump up our fairies in our EX area. We have Spirit Shine, this is a new card. 1-drop, choose one of the following. You put a pixie token, or you choose a pixie token in your EX area, and you give it +2/+2, or on the field or EX area, give it +2/+2, or you put 2 fairy tokens into your EX area. So you can pump up something in your EX or on the field, or just put some more fairies into your EX. Yeah, it's really good. It's versatile. Nature's Guidance, simple. 1-drop, select a card in your field, return it to its owner's hand, and then draw a card. It's just really good at either saving some of our stuff from damage. It's not quick speed, so you have to, you know, do it on your turn. Or you can do some sort of shenanigans where you know, play stuff, bounce some stuff, and then you can like roach them for a bunch, which can be very, very strong. And then the final card of the deck is Elf Song. This is a card that we've been keeping an eye on for a while because we knew it was going to be good. It's a 2-drop. You summon a fairy token just onto the field, and combo 3, you give all of your forest followers +1/+1. So this is another one of your kind of finisher cards where you play a bunch of stuff, play a bunch of your fairies and your wisps and all that kind of good stuff, and then maybe you have your Amatas to give some of them Storm, and then you play this to pump them all up, and you have a big army out of nowhere. Like I said, this is your aggro, like your aggressive style aggro deck. Really strong, actually. Actually, it's one of the best decks in the format, I think. So, fairies. Don't underestimate the fairies. Next, we have Hunter Forest. I'm actually super, super excited for this deck. It's just this new take on Forest that I personally really, really enjoy. And yeah, also got to use my new SWORDCRAFT leader, Liza, which is actually great. For the sleeves, we got kind of this era Arissa kind of thing going on, but we also have these, yeah, just great Shadowverse character sleeves. Anyway, let's start talking about Hunter Forest. This deck is super, super cool. I'm not entirely sure how to quantify this. It's kind of like I'd say it's mid-range. This is definitely like a mid-range deck that has some pretty nice synergy and like late game potential. We're running stuff like King Elephant, but we're not running the Evo version of King Elephant. There's also a lot of cards that are Hunter type that you probably didn't think are Hunter type. Did you know King Elephant is a Hunter type? He's a Hunter beast. Weird, huh? All right, so The big new key card of this deck is Limaga Forest Champion. She's awesome. She's kind of like Alice from Egg Haven in that she gives you a bunch of advantage and kind of like gives you extra dudes to play. 6-drop, 4/4, evos for 2. She has Storm and Bane just at base level. And on Fanfare, you look at the top 4 cards of your deck and you summon a Hunter follower that costs 4 or less among them. Rest go on the bottom. So she literally summons another 4-drop, which is great. And you know what? There's a bunch of powerful Hunter 4-drops in this deck. Like, there's so many hits for this. You can get these actual 4-drops. We have 3-drops, 2-drops. There's a bunch of stuff you can get with this. She's really, really strong. And then when you Evo her, she becomes a 5/5, still has Storm and Bane, and then you're going to do it again. You look at another top 4 cards of your deck, and you summon another Hunter follower that costs 4 or less onto the field. Really, really strong. So we have 2 of her in the Evo deck, and they're running 3 in the main. Next up, we get to use Izudia, the Omen of Unkilling from the Omen's Eternal set. He's also a Hunter. In fact, the whole Unkilling archetype is Hunter. So we actually get to finally use a lot of the powerful Unkilling stuff. So 5-drop, 4/4, evos for 1, Fanfare. If there's at least 300 cards in our cemetery, select an enemy fall in the field, change it into an amulet and give it, they have to pay 2 and then put it into the cemetery. It keeps all existing abilities, including Evo and like the carrot effect. So basically, you just turn their thing into an amulet. It can no longer like attack you, but it does still keep its abilities. But it also takes up a space, and they have to pay 2 to get rid of it. Izudia is really, really annoying. And also, he just kills her opponent because when you evolve him, he becomes a 5/5, and then you can activate him and deal 6 damage to each enemy leader with at least 10 defense. So really, really great to just dome our opponent for 6. If they have 10, you can dome them for 6 from 10 because they need at least 10, and then they go down to 4. Yeah, he's really good. So running 2 in 2 of Izudia in the Evo deck, and then running 3 of him in the main deck. Finally, this dude gets to shine. We're running Silent Suzuka, one of my favorite cards. I really like Silent Suzuka. She's a great Umamusume card, but just really good in SWORDCRAFT. 4-drop, 4/1. She has Storm, and then when you Evo her, you get to yeet one of your opponent's things, which is great. We're just running 1 in the Evo deck. She becomes a 5/2, still has Storm. Select any fall in the field and put it on the top of its owner's deck. Really good. Notably, one of the only cards in the deck that's not a Hunter. She's just a little Umamusume card. All right, let's get back onto all of the Hunter cards, which is, I think every other card in the entire deck is a Hunter card. I think literally Silent Suzuka is the only not Hunter card in the whole deck. So let's start talking about our Hunter cards. So Servant on Killing, 1-drop, 2/2. Fanfare, if there's at least 300 cards in our cemetery, we heal for 2. Great little 1-drop, 2/2. She's a Omen Hunter card. Disciple of Unkilling, 2-drop, 1/3. Look at the top card of our deck. If it's a Hunter card, we reveal it and put it into our hand. Great, because every card in the deck is a Hunter card, with the exception of Silent Suzuka. So running a full 3 of that. Next up, we have the Crossbow Sniper, 1-drop, 1/1. Fanfare, discard a Hunter card, select an enemy leader or follower in the field, and deal it 1 damage, and draw a card. So this helps put Hunter cards into our graveyard, so we can then, make the most use of things that care about having Hunter cards in our cemetery. So yeah, it's just a 1-drop, and also draws a card. So great little card there. Woodland Cleaver. This is a great one to get off of our Izudia's effect. So 2-drop, 2/2, evos for 1. If it's put onto the field by an ability, it gets Storm. So if we choose this card with Limaga, did I say Izudia's? Limaga's ability, it'll get Storm, which is great. So it's a 2/2 with 2 that can get Storm, and then when you Evo her, she chucks an axe, I think. So she unevolve, select an enemy fall in the field, and deal it 2 damage. Yeah, she throws one of her axes at him for 2 damage, and she becomes a 3/3. So you can just put her on the field, Evo her, deal some damage. Yeah, pretty good stuff. I'm just running one of the Evo because we don't want to Evo her as much. We have more important things to Evo, but still, nice little 2-drop. Speaking of which, we have another 2-drop. There's a 2-drop, 3/2. This one has Ward, and on Fanfare, bury the top card of our deck, And if there's at least 300 cards in our cemetery, she gets +1 defense. So she becomes a 2-drop 3/3 with ward, which is really, really good. Really solid. Next up we have Archer. We're not running the Evo version of Archer in this deck, but Archer, as you'd guess, is a hunter. So 2-drop 1/4. She can Evo for 1, but we're not running the Evo. And then whenever another follower is put on our field, select an enemy follower, deal 1 damage. Really, really solid. Next up we have the Apostle of Unkilling. This is one of the higher end hunter cards. 3-drop 3/3, Evos for 1. That's all it does. But we definitely want to Evo it because on Evo becomes a 4/4. And we search our deck for a hunter follower that costs 2 play points or less, put it onto the field, then shuffle our deck. So we can go search for, we can get our Archer, we can get our Ward, but we can also get our Woodland Cleaver, which will then have Storm, which is really, really solid. So for basically 4 resources for 4 play points, you can get your, you get a 4/4 and a 2/2 with Storm. It's pretty good. So yeah, we're running 3 in the main, and then like I just showed, I think we're just running 2. I think we're running 2 of everything, with the exception of Suzuka and the Woodland Cleaver for the Evo deck. Next up we have Assault Jaguar, 3-drop 4/1 with Rush, and then on last words, you look at the top 2 of your deck, and you can reveal a hunter from among them, put it in your hand, bury the rest. So it kind of fills up our cemetery for the cards that care about that, but also draws us a card too. So once again, this deck is really, really efficient. You can see these things that have been good in other decks before, like Umamusume, like in Fable, like these cards that just kind of synergize with each other, draws cards, all that kind of good stuff. This is another really good one. The Wildwood Matriarch, 4-drop 3/3 Evos for 2. Fanfare, this card is put into the field by an ability, Evolve It. And we can't do that with the Apostle of Unkilling because he only gets 2 drops. However, if you select it with, oh, she's in the other pile, Limaga. So if you select her with Limaga, then she immediately evolves, which is very, very cool. And then what does she do when she evolves? Well, it's quite good. She becomes a 4/4, and then on Evolve, select 200 followers that cost 2 or less in our cemetery and summon them. You put them in play. This card is nuts. So basically what you can do is you can get your Limaga out, and then from Limaga, hopefully you hit a Wildwood Matriarch. You get the Wildwood Matriarch, she comes into play, she immediately evolves. This gets around the once per turn Evo effects because it's from its own effect and not from like the Evo mechanic. And then you get any 2-drops back. And then you can pick up stuff like, I don't know, the one that has Storm or just the 3/2. There's a lot of nice 2-drops and less that we can get back from this ability. Really, really, really powerful. The fact that she just pulls them and gets them for free is good. And you get 2 of them. You get 2 of them. So yeah, Wild and Matriarch, kind of a beast. This old lady's a house. So we run a full 3 and then 2 in the Evo. And then we have the 2 King Elephants as a nice little finisher. Once again, it's a 6-drop. We're not running the Evo version, so it's just a 6 with Storm, and you select any number of cards on your field, put them to your hand, and this gets +X, where X is the number of cards in your hand. Really good. And then we have, finally, the Mark of Unkilling. It's one of our, I think it's the only spell in this deck, right? So 2-drop spell, select any follower in the field and deal it X damage. X equals their defense -1, so they just takes them down to 1. And then if there's at least 300 cards in your cemetery, you also draw a card. So just take something down to 1, draw a card. Really good. It makes it so you can use stuff like the little pinger dude, who does like 1 point of damage, to finish things off. Or you can just run in your smaller stuff into the things and just kill it off. Anyway, this deck is sweet. Like, this deck is super cool. I think it is one of the most underrated decks out there. It just synergizes so well. People sometimes forget that Limaga herself has Storm. You can just do insane turns where you just pull some damage, get dudes back out. This deck is sweet. Yeah, I like it a lot. Next up, we have the return of a favorite from the Omens Eternal format. This is Disdain Dragon. I actually have 2 dragon decks to talk about today, which is pretty sweet. Of course, we have this Draconic Weapon token. I'm going to try to get through these a little bit quicker because this is a deck that's literally the same as the last deck tech deep dive, with the exception of a couple new cards. So, the sleeves for this one, oh, I love these sleeves. Forte is, I keep saying favorite characters, but I truly do love Shadowverse, and I love a lot of the characters. Forte literally is one of my favorite characters. I have a big tapestry of her in the studio. But yeah, we got the Forte sleeves, and then the Sybil sleeves as well. It kind of like pairs really nicely. All right, so this is Disdain Dragon, right? And it's literally the same deck, except I added in Phylene. I'm keeping in my Prime Dragon Keepers, and I also added in 2 White Frost Whispers to work with Phylene. And we can kind of quickly go over it, but I don't want to spend too much time because it's the same deck plus Phylene. Phylene is just super, super good, by the way, so we can talk about Phylene. She's a 1-drop, 1/3. On Fanfare, you select the enemy fall on the field, and it doesn't refresh during its controller's next start phase, so it just kind of keeps them down. And then also, on Fanfare, if Overflow is active for you, you search your deck for a White Frost Whisper, and then you put it in your EX area, then you shuffle. And then the White Frost Whisper is a 2-drop spell, but it costs 1 less if Overflow is active for you. So this is basically just costs 2 to do both of these effects if Overflow is active for you. And then you select an engaged enemy follower on the field and destroy it. If there's a Phylene on your field, then you deal 2 damage to the follower's leader as well. This card's really, really sweet. I'm only running 2 because it's not super great in the early game, and you basically kind of want this late game to make the most use of it. And yeah, we're running a full set of the Phylenes. This card's insane. Phylene's great. And then other than that, we have the Galmia Disdain package. We're running Galmia herself, as well as the full 3 Evo of Galmia. We have the full 3 Forte as all dragon decks, and you'll see this with the next dragon deck as well. 3 Forte in the main, 2 Forte in the Evo deck for that nice 7 Storm, as well as the Aura. God, she's so powerful. And then we are running Prime Dragon Keeper. Why PDK in this deck, even though it's a Disdain deck? Well, if you take a look at it, so PDK, let's just say, read what she does. 3-drop, 1/5. Fanfare, if Overflow is active for you, she gets +1/+1 and Intimidate, which is great, which means she cannot be attacked into. She also says, whenever another dragon follower that costs 3 play points or less is put onto your field, select an enemy follower on the field, it takes 2 damage and then 1 to the leader. So we care about dragon followers that cost 3 or less. So we have the 3 Phylenes, then we have Draconir, we have Apostle of Disdain, we have Dragon Summoner, we have Servant of Disdain, we have Disciple of Disdain. Keep in mind, Bellringer Angel does not count, not a dragon follower. But we have a giant chunk of cards that trigger off of PDK, so I think she's really good in this deck. And also, I have this nice Ultimate Rare one, so she looks great. So yeah, we have PDK. Draconir is a nice Evo card that gives a nice little 2-for-1 on Evo, so running 2 of him in the Evo deck. Like I said, if you want a much more deep dive into this, check out the previous video, because it's literally the same. We have the Apostle of Disdain. This card's really sweet because you can give it Storm if it takes ability damage, +1 in Storm. And then when you Evo her, she becomes also quite strong. She becomes a 3/5, and then you can discard a card. You look at the opponent's top 5, or you look at the top 5 cards of your deck. From among them, you can reveal up to 2 Omen cards, and then put them in your hand, which is kind of crazy. And then put the remainder on the bottom of your deck. And then once again, whenever she takes ability damage, she gets +1 in Storm. Galmia is also just insanely good. In case you didn't know, I guess we'll go over Galmia again as well. She's a 5-drop, 5/5, good stats. Evos for 2. However, during her turn, whenever she takes ability damage, you can Evo her for 0. So that's all she does on the base form. But on the Evo form, she goes kind of crazy. She becomes a 6/6, and then you select an Omen card that costs 2 play points or less in our cemetery, and then we just play it, which is great. Any Omen card. And then during her turn, whenever this follower takes ability damage, you select an enemy leader or an enemy follower on the field, and it takes 3 damage. And that's not a once per turn, it just happens every single time. And then we have cards like Dragon Summoner that help us, draw even more cards. We have 2 in the main, and then we have 1 in the Evo deck. We have our Servant of Disdain. This is one of our ways to deal ability damage. If Overflow is active for you, you select another follower in the field and deal it 1 damage to it and this follower. And then during our turn, whenever this follower takes ability damage, we draw a card. So it's a way to turn on Galmia and also itself. It's also a 2-drop, 2/3. This is another way to deal ability damage. 1-drop, 1/2 for 0. Select an enemy follower, or select any follower on our field and deal it 1 damage. It can only be activated once per turn. Once again, great to turn on any of our Disdain cards, really. Any of them. And then we have our 3 of Bellringer Angel. It's a card that you'll see in a lot of decks. We have none in the Evo deck. I knew there were some that I didn't run in the Evo decks. This one's a pretty packed up Evo deck. And then the rest of the deck is removal and ramp, basically. The Disdainful Rending is a way to deal damage to our own dudes and also our opponent's dudes. So for 1, we select a follower on our field. It takes 1 damage, and then the enemy follower takes 3. So it turns on all of our Disdain stuff. Total Domination is crazy with Galmu. Does a bunch of damage to our opponent's stuff. Basically does 2 damage to one of our followers and 4 to theirs if we have Galmia. So it's 2. And one of our followers takes 2, and then all the enemy followers take 2. And then if there's Galmia on our field, they take another 2. So 2 to Galmu, and then 4 to their field, and then Galmia will deal an additional 3. This card's crazy. And then we have our 3 of Dragon Oracle for big ramp. Yeah, this is like a sweet, and I think it actually finally comes into its own in this format. Before, I think it kind of could stumble a little bit, but now I think it's quite good. Definitely consider this deck. Next up, our other dragon deck is, well, I was gonna say it's a brand new archetype. It's not technically, it's kind of like a ramp style dragon. Using our new Oracle of the Waterworm leader. Looks absolutely fantastic. For the sleeves, we have these more draconic weapons for Draconir. For the sleeves, this one is pretty sweet because I'm using more of the Anime Expo sleeves that I picked up. Or they're not specifically Anime Expo sleeves, I picked them up at AX, but they look really, really good. So we're using these and then some nice Forte sleeves because I've got to run at least some Forte sleeves in my dragon decks. Yeah, this is a Garyu deck. This deck is sweet. This is kind of like a ramp dragon, but the main player here is Garyu, and you can do some pretty crazy stuff. So Garyu is a 5-drop, 3/4, Evos for 1, Fanfare, you just draw a card, and then it says, while this card is on your field, every other dragon follower on your field also has a ward. So we're running 3 Garyu. Now, what makes Garyu so good is that when you Evo him, we're running 2 in the Evo, he becomes a 4/5, and he says, on Evolve, you can summon a dragon follower that costs 5 or less from your hand. While it's on your field, each other follower, dragon follower gets ward. So you basically spend 6, and then you get 11 play points worth of value. It's kind of nuts. So what you do is you play Garyu, you evolve Garyu, and you get another 5-drop for free. Well, what 5-drops are you going to want? Well, you can get Forte, which is pretty good. You can get the Jade-Long Tactician, which is a card specifically designed for Garyu, which is a 3/5 with Storm and Strike. Select another follower on your field and give it +1/+1. If there's a Garyu on your field, give it +2/+2. Or we can get this, which is the real spice, the Electro-Magical Rhino, which is a 5-drop. So we can play Garyu for 5, Evo him for 1, and then immediately drop the Rhino, which is a 0/7 that now has Ward, which is just annoying, and then it has Storm, and then on Fanfare, give this follower +3 attack, and then put the top 4 cards of your deck into your cemetery. If one of those cards was another Electro-Magical Rhino, you do it again. So you get another 3 attack, and then you do the 4. And then when the Rhino dies, you select any number of cards named Electro-Magical Rhino in your cemetery, including this one, and then they go back into your deck. So basically, this is the spice, right? You play your Garyu, you evolve Garyu, and then you get your Rhino, right? So now you can just jam your Rhino for 3. It's now a 3/7 with Ward, and then you can maybe hit another Rhino, becomes a 6/7 with Ward, and then you still have your 4/5 Garyu. It's just really, really good value. So if you like big dumb dragon stuff, this deck does big dumb dragon stuff, and it's sweet. It is very sweet. We're also running the 3 of Phylene because she is kind of crazy. Once again, Phylene's great. Run it on all your dragon decks. We're running 3 of the White Frost Whisper in this version. Once again, we're running 3 of the Fortes. So 3 Fortes main, just 5 storm damage, and then 2 in the Evo deck. We have the Jade-Long Tactician that we just mentioned. We have the Electro-Magical Rhino that we just mentioned. As a traditional dragon deck, we're running our good buddy Shenlong, which is a restricted card, only one of. It's a 5-drop, 4/5. Fanfare, draw 2, discard 1. Has Ward, and you can Evo it for 2. And then on Evo, we gain 5 life. It becomes a 5/6. Yeah, just good stuff there. You can drop your Shenlong if you want. I would not drop your Shenlong, by the way, because if you evoed Garyu, that means you cannot evo again, and you really want to evo your Shenlong. So do not play your Shenlong with your Garyu. The Dragon Summoner, once again, just a nice little card that lets us go basically draw stuff. 2-drop, evos for 1, it's a 1/3, and then we have 2 in the evo deck. So we want to evo both of the ones that we play. And then on evo, it becomes a 2/4, and you look at the top 3 of your deck, and you can reveal a Dragon Follower, put it in your hand, rest on the bottom. Pretty good. We really care about dragon stuff. Hey, look, here's more Bellringer Angels. Like I said, Bellringer Angel, just great. Run it in a lot of my decks. We do have the one in the evo deck for that nice little tempo. We have 3 of the Draconir. Once again, just a really nice dragon staple. Just a 3-drop evos for 1. You do get your Draconic Weapon, get a nice little +1 health on one of your dudes, makes it armed, and then when it does, you can deal this bonus damage with Draconir, who becomes a 4/4, and then you can deal 2 damage to a follower on evos, but if you have an armed follower, it deals 4 damage. So basically you just need 1 other follower in your field to make it armed with our Draconic Weapon. This deck is running Path to Purgatory, which is kind of wild. Deals damage to us, but we get to draw 3 cards, and then if our leader's defense is 6 or less at the start of our end phase, this just deals 6 to all of our opponents. Dragon Emissary is a nice little draw spell that lets you look at the top 5 cards of your deck, reveal a dragon card that costs 5 play points or less among them, and put it into your hand, which is really, really nice. We also have our Dragon Oracles. These ones are in Japanese because I don't have more English versions. We have Blazing Breath as a nice little removal. Notably, this was not included in the Disdain deck because there's the more Disdain relevant removal. Of course, the White Frost Whisper. And then finally, we run a full 3 of Conflagration for the board wipe potential. Yeah, this deck's a lot of fun. And I love how it kind of like harkens a little bit back to like traditional dragon roots, but you can also just kind of like go really big and you know, with Garyu and the Rhino, and it's actually really sweet. If you want to play like you know, some sort of ramp-ish dragon, I recommend this. I recommend it. It's a spicy one. Now we have Haven. Now, Haven's an interesting one because this is essentially the decks that I ran last, I was gonna call it season, last set, but updated versions. And I think this deck, which is my Deus Ex Machina or my Karula Haven list, got a lot more upgrades than the Egg Haven list. As you can see, we are running Lorena, Gentle Piety as the leader. Her voice lines are actually quite hilarious. And then for the sleeves, oh, big fan of the Dark Jean. And then of course for the main deck, we have if her name is like Diamond Master. I don't remember her name, but she's great. Anyway, let's start talking about the deck. One cool thing I like about this deck is I kind of went a little extra on it, and I got the 2 ultimate rare Jeanne d'Arcs and the Zoes, and I have the ultimate rare Marwyn. So it's kind of a spicy Evo deck. All right, so this deck is all about basically having extra play points at the end of our turn. This is essentially a control deck that has a lot of board control options and a really big end game with Aegis and Aether of the White Wing. Very cool little combination there. Of course, we can get ahead pretty early with Marwyn, and I have some nice little 2-for-1s like Zoe and some board supers like Jeanne d'Arc. But a big part of this deck is just having extra play points at the end of our turn and then being able to use them for stuff like Karula or fast speed spells. So Karula is a 3-drop 3/3, can evo for 1 at the start of our end phase. If we have at least 2 play points, deal 2 damage to each enemy leader. Then if we have at least 4, we draw a card, and if we have at least 6, we pick one of our enemy followers and destroy it. Really powerful effects there. And the Evo version is essentially the same, but we also get some play points back. So he becomes a 4/4, and it says at the start of our end phase, recover 2 play points. Then do all of those. So that's really great. We at least will deal 2 damage to each enemy leader, and then we do more effects the more play points we have. And there's a lot of ways to do that other than just having the play points open naturally. So we're running 3 of him in the main and 3 in the side, or in the Evo deck. So Deus Ex Machina is one of the cards that I really, really enjoyed in the last set, and I think she's also really, really sweet in this deck. So she's a 5-drop, 4/6, and she says, at the start of your end phase, choose 1. Discard your hand, draw 4 cards, or recover 4 play points. I really like both of these effects. If you're playing against one of the control decks that goes heavy into discard, like Sanguine Abyss, then this will basically nullify that, and you draw 4 cards every single one of your turns if they don't kill this Deus Ex Machina. Or you can recover 4 play points. So if you have Karula and a Deus Ex Machina, so let's say you have the Evoed Karula, and he gets you 2 play points, and then you have Deus Ex Machina that gives you 4 play points, that's 6 back at the start of our end phase. And we can stack these triggers where we have the Deus Ex Machina trigger first, so we recover the 4 play points, and then we have the Karula trigger afterwards, so then this effect will happen. So we'll get the 2 play points back from this, having 6 play points, they'll take 2 damage, we'll draw a card, and we blow up one of their things. Just for having these 2, right? We can spend all of our play points in the turn, and then at the end of the turn, we still get this effect. It's really, really strong. And like I said, it lends itself really well to like this control strategy. So we're running a full 3 of Deus Ex Machina as well. I'm also running a single Aether of the White Wing. I actually might add might bump this up to another one to have 2, but this card is so sweet because it basically gets whatever we need. It's a 7-drop, 3/5 with Ward, and on Fanfare we search our deck for any Haven follower with a different name from this card that costs less than our maximum play points, and then we put it onto the field, right? So if we have 9 play points and we play Aether, we can go grab an Aegis and put it onto the field. If we have 7 and play Aether, we can go get a 6-drop, which is any other card in the entire deck that's not Aegis. We can go grab Deus Ex Machina, we can go grab a Karula. What's really sweet is, if you do play this on curve, right, you play this on 7, you can go search your deck for a Deus Ex Machina, and then, you know, draw 4 cards, you can get your 4 play points back if you have some removal in your hand. This is really, really powerful, right? And then she's also a 3/5 with Ward. I think it's really strong, and I might end up like bumping her up to 2 in this deck, but the 1 is still pretty good. Still pretty good. Then of course we have one of our big finishers, Heavenly Aegis. This is one of the cards that I've been playing in Haven ever since set 2. It's just crazy. It's an 8-drop, 8/8 evos for 2, or you can discard 3 cards from your hand to evo it. It has aura. It can't be destroyed by abilities, but it can be destroyed by damage. But what you want to do is you evo it, and then it becomes a 10/10 that just doesn't take damage. So it becomes a 10/10 with aura. On evolve for the rest of this turn, and during each of your opponent's next turns, this follower doesn't take damage and can't be destroyed by abilities. So yeah, it becomes unkillable for a single turn. And if you can give this Ward, it makes you also more or less unkillable unless they have some direct damage. And we do have ways to give it Ward with Guardian Sun, which is a card that lets us pick a follower on the field and give it Ward, and then we can also pump up a follower with Ward by +2/+2. So yeah, we are running 2 Aegis in this particular version. I was running 3 before, but we're just going to be running 2 for here. We also have 2 Marwyn, which is another pseudo Aegis-like card. It's a 4-drop, 4/4, and it has 2 ways to evolve. You can either pay 4 play points or skip our next turn. Well, we skip our next turn more often than not, because when we actually evolve Marwyn, he becomes an 8/8, so he goes from a 4/4 to 8/8 with Ward and Aura, and on Evo, we increase our maximum play points by 1, heal 3, and draw a card. So it's kind of like taking an extra turn, and against some decks, it's just really, really hard for them to deal with Marwyn. So yeah, Marwyn's a really, really powerful card. Next up is a pet card of mine with Zoe. I was actually running 3 Zoe in my previous version of this deck, but now there's just so many good cards to choose from. We're only running 2, but we have 2 of the regular Zoes and 2 of the Evo Zoes. And what does she do? Well, she does quite a lot, actually. She's a 4-drop, 3/3. You can Evo her for 1. You always want to Evo her. And on Fanfare, you take 2 damage and you mill 2 cards, but she also draws you a card. So you take 2 damage, top 2 cards of your deck into your cemetery, but you draw a card. And then on Evo, she becomes a 4/4, and you just pick any enemy follower and you banish it. So that's really, really good value, It's basically 5 for a 4/4, draw a card, banish any follower. It's really, really good, and I like the unconditional banish, so you can get rid of whatever BS that they have going on. So yeah, I actually really like Zoe, so I run 2 of her. And then we have Jeanne d'Arc, one of the best board wipes on a stick. She's a 4-drop 3/5. When she comes into play, she deals 2 damage to each enemy follower, and then she evos for 2. And then we run 2 of the Evo versions in our Evo deck, and she's so good. She becomes a 4/5, and then she does another 2 damage to each enemy follower on the field, and then she gives all of our followers plus 2 health. So basically, when you play her, you need to drop 6 play points total, but you drop the 6 play points, and it's essentially 4 damage to your opponent's board and plus 2 health to your board. Really, really good. So this is our board wipe of choice over something like Themis' Decree. This is more of a one-sided board wipe, and we do have a board presence. Next up, we have another board wiper. That's a one-sided board wipe. We have a Boost Kicker. This is a great card from Paragons of the Colosseum. 2-drop 2/2. And then on Fanfare, you can play an additional X play points to deal X damage to each enemy follower on the field. X equals the number that you paid. And then at the start of your end phase, you also recover a play point, so it synergizes well with all of the other like play point synergy stuff. This is a really good card. You can play this on 10 to deal 8 damage to your opponent's board. You can play this on 6 to do 4 damage, or whatever you need. Whatever you need. It's a great card. Next up, we have another new card that's really, really solid. This is the Phantom Blade Wielder, 2-drop 2/2. You evo her for 1, and at the start of your end phase, if you have at least 2 play points, select an enemy fall on the field and deal it 2 damage. So once again, synergizes well with the play points matters stuff. And then for the Evo, we're only running a single copy of her, but she becomes a 3/3, and then on Evolve, you can select an enemy fall on the field and deal it 2 damage, and then she still has the same effect. If you have 2 play points at the end of your turn, deal 2 damage to an enemy follower. So she can actually deal 7 damage split, so she can attack for 3, deal 2 damage, and then deal another 2 damage, which is pretty good. She's pretty sweet. So yeah, we're running a full 3 of in the main, and then the 1 in the side. We're talking about Guardian Sun. It is a 1-drop amulet, and we have a way to go get that. We're running 2 Globe of the Starways, and this is one of those cards where I was running a lot of the card draw amulets before, and I found that they just do nothing. They just sit around and let you draw cards while your opponent beats your face in. These ones are still pretty good because they also heal you, and they also let you search your deck for an amulet. So you can go search your deck for the Guardian Sun if you need it, which is great. Or you can go search your deck for Seraph or another copy of Globe if you just kind of want to chain them together. So I like Globe, but I think 2 is a good number right now. Next up, we have Seraph. So I'm only running 1 copy of Instatuated Seraph because you only ever need 1 copy. You can go search for it with your Globe of the Starways. And Seraph is a 6-drop. It's really hard to play sometimes, to be honest. 6-drop, it can't be destroyed by abilities. And it says, at the start of your end phase, you put a prayer counter on this card. Then if it has at least 4 prayer counters on it, put it into your cemetery, heal 10, then search your deck for up to 2 cards, put them into your EX area, and those cost 0 play points to play. Now, what you can do is you can get a lot of different stuff here, right? You can go grab your Seraph and your Aegis is kind of like the standard combo, but you can also, if you have 9 play points, right, you can grab your Aether and your Guardian Sun, so that way you get Aether, you can go get your Aegis from the Aether, and then you also have the Guardian Sun. Like I said, Aether is really, really good. Or any other combination of stuff, you know, that you want. Maybe you go get your Karula and your Deus Ex Machina, or whatever. Maybe you've already run through your Aegises or something. But either way, Seraph is still really good and can still really like clinch the game for you. All right, next up we have a whole bunch of spells. They're pretty simple though. Focus is a new 0-drop quick spell. This can only be played on our opponent's turn, so it cannot be played on our turn. And it says if you have at least 2 play points, give your leader +1 health and draw a card. So once again, we want to have at least 2 play points on our opponent's turn, and this lets us just draw a card and gain 1 life for 0, which is great. We are running 2 of the Saviors. This one lets us go search our deck for Marwyn, which is good, or we can banish an enemy follower with 2 defense or less. So that's not too bad, nice little 1-drop removal. And here's another new removal that we have. That's a 1-drop Holy Counterattack. Once again, this card cannot be played on our turn, has to be played on the opponent's turn. And it says select an engaged enemy follower on the field and deal it 2 damage. If there's a follower with ward on our field, it takes 4 damage instead. And we do have a decent amount of stuff with ward on our field. we have stuff like, maybe not a decent amount, but we have the Evo Marwyn, we have Aether. So I guess we don't have a ton amount of stuff, but we have a couple cards with Ward. But it's still like a 1-drop, deal 2 damage, possibly deal 4 damage, and it synergizes with what we're going to do. So not too bad, testing it out since it's a brand new card. You could also just run Angelic Snipe for just 2 damage, quick speed. Oh, more or less the same, but at least Snipe lets you do it on your turn. We have Surefire Bullet. Once again, this is in almost all my decks. It's in a lot of the decks. 2-drop, deal something 3 damage. If it's an Evoed follower, deal 4 damage. Great. And then finally, Acolyte's Light. This is the one you really want to have in your hand at the end of your Deus Ex Machina turn because it costs 4, which is exactly what you need, or what Deus Ex Machina gives you back. And it just says, pick an enemy fall on the field, banish it, and heal for 2. Really, really good. Like definitely a very key part of the deck. And any of these quick speed stuff is just really good with the, notably Saviors is not quick speed, but any of these other quick speed cards are really good with getting the play points back. And Globe of the Starways, its ability can be activated at quick speed as well. So all this stuff just kind of really synergizes together, and I think this is a really sweet and fun control deck. So yeah, I like this deck a lot, and also it has very, very nice bling potential. And of course, the final deck we're talking about today is the tried, the true. This is your Egg Haven or your Fable Haven. Now that I'm doing these oversleeve with the character sleeves, I can actually use my Alice sleeves, which look absolutely fantastic. Our leader of choice is this foil Eris that looks incredible. And then our deck of sleeves, like I mentioned, we have the Alice, and then we have Aether again. And then we have this really nice one. Look at this. This looks great for the Evo deck. Now, I'm not going to spend too much time on this. This is your Egg Haven deck, and you've seen it on this channel a lot. I've played it a lot. I've had guests play this. It's a really powerful deck. It's still really powerful. Did it get a lot of upgrades? Not really. I got a couple upgrades. So one of them is Bob Katha. I was nice enough to myself to pull one of these. So I did get the nice UR Bob Katha to go with my UR Alice, which is nice. So the deck is essentially the same, right? We have our Alice to help us move some fabled counters around, as well as to get more fabled followers. We have our Humpty Dumpty who evos and blows up stuff and does Humpty Dumpty explosion damage and hits our opponent in the face and all that kind of good stuff. We have our Explosion to burn our opponent out and their board. We have our Farias, who also generate Fabled counters and it's a 1-drop 2/2. We have our Tin Soldier to make use of those Fabled counters and burn our opponent down for 2 damage at a time. We have the Pinion Prince, who I always forget it's a fanfare and not Evo, that you can pick a Fabled card in your cemetery and put it into your EX area, and then you also put a Fabled counter on it. So it's just so cracked with Tin Soldier. And then also he evos and gets a Sail, which is nice, so it helps him just pick off anything. Becomes a 5/6 with the Sail. We're running our Odette White Swan as usual. Nice little Fabled card that also heals our board for +2. We're still running our Finas to go grab our 1-drops, and we have some very important 1-drops with our Actress Farias and our Andromedas, which are here, which is a really, really powerful card. 1-drop 2/2, and then for the rest of the turn, our leader and each follower currently on our field, including this one, just doesn't take ability damage, so protects our board from our own Egg Blasts, which is busted. And then, like I said, Fina can go grab those or blow up our opponent's 1-drops. Demon's Epitaph, it's a card from the last set. It's a nice little, just efficient 2-drop 2/3 that when it evos, it gets Bane, which is just kind of wild. Gets Bane, and on the last words, it deals 2 damage to each enemy leader. So direct damage and Bane, super powerful. The Evo is just discarding a card, but we don't care because we're going to be playing cards from our EX area. And then, of course, the only new cards of the deck. So we'll go over the new cards last. We're running Alice's Adventure, which is an amulet that just lets us tutor for any Fabled card and put it in our hand, which is just wild. This card is so good. And then we have March Hare's Tea Time, which is also just crazy good, that just gets us stuff from the top of our deck, and then it gets us stuff from our cemetery, which is just wild. So yeah, another just super, super high value card. And then, like I said, our new cards. So let's go over the Phantom Blade Wielder. We already talked about this in the Karula or Deus Ex Machina deck. 2-drop 2/2. You can evo for 1, and then this is the one at the start of your end phase. If you have at least 2 play points, select an enemy follower in the field and deal it 2 damage. So we have the 3 in the main, and then we're running... Why do I keep picking up that pile? And then we're running just the 1 in the Evo deck, which is still nice, right? Like I said, it represents 7 points of damage for just 1 unit, and yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. And then, of course, we have the new card, or the other new card we're running in the deck is Bob Katha, 3-drop, 2/3. It evos for 2 and has a whole bunch of abilities. On Fanfare, you choose one of these. You can give one of your followers +1/+1. You can give your leader +2 health, or you can look at the top 3 cards of your deck and then put any number of them back on the top of the deck in any order. So you can kind of stack the top of your deck. But it gets better when you evo her. She becomes a 4/5, so it gets the +2/+2. And then you choose another one of these following. You can engage each enemy following their field, which is nuts, so all of them become engaged. Or you can deal 2 damage to each enemy leader, so direct burn, which is good in this deck. Or you can put the top card of your deck into your EX area, which is also just really good for this deck, because we want to play stuff from our EX area after we discard our hand with the Humpty Dumpty. So Bob Katha is actually really, really solid in this deck. We're only running 1 evo of her in the evo deck, because our evo deck is really tight. It's really, really tight, because basically here's how the evo deck breaks down, right? You have 3 Alice, because she's the backbone of the deck. You have 3 Humpty Dumpty, because it's literally how we win the game, more or less. We have you know, other ways to burn, and then 4 1-ups. That's basically how our evo deck shakes out. You got to max out on your Alices and your Humpty Dumpty, and then you have 4 slots remaining. And yeah, that's the Egg Haven deck. It's still really powerful. I would not be surprised if this gets top 8 at the Grand Showdown, or does, you know, even better than that. So we'll have to see how everything exactly shakes out. But Egg Haven, an incredibly affordable deck and one of the best in the entire game. Whew, and that's gonna do it for us, everyone. Another really, really long deep dive. Thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. These videos are a lot of work. It's not easy building 11 decks, though. I enjoy it so much. So thank you all so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And let me know in the comments down below if you're listening and watching this far. No one is, but if you are, then let me know which decks that you would like to see in upcoming gameplay videos. Or if there's any other decks you'd like to see me build, let me know. There's some other decks out there that I can maybe potentially build. We have like Ward Haven and maybe even like a Mysteria Rune. I don't know. Let me know, and we'll see you next time. All right, bye everyone.